Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into a really fascinating shift that's happening right now. AI, artificial intelligence, and its growing role in how software actually gets built.
Right.
You're probably tuning in because, well, you want a clear, efficient handle on this whole area. It's pretty complex, and that's exactly what we're aiming for today.
Yeah, we've definitely gathered a lot of material here. We're looking at articles on AI testing tools, what generative AI skills are becoming essential.
Hmm.
There's even a study plan for AI-focused full-stack engineers, plus AI coding assistants, prompt engineering, how to use them,
No.
AI's impact in the workplace, some research on generative AI and software engineering specifically, ethical stuff, and even the developer workflow for these Gen AI apps.
Exactly. So our mission really is to pull out the key insights from all that. We want to give you a solid grasp of how AI is being used right now in software development.
What skills you need?
Yeah, what skills are becoming crucial and, the big trends and things to keep top of mind, all without getting completely bogged down in the details.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, let's jump right in. What's one of the biggest changes you're seeing?
I'd say it's just how quickly and widely these AI-powered tools are being adopted. I mean, the numbers really paint a picture.
Yeah.
The 2024 Stack Overflow Developer Survey, it showed a huge jump.
Yeah.
61.8% of developers using AI tools in 2024.
Wow.
Compare that to 43.78% just the year before, in 2023.
That's massive growth. It really suggests a fundamental shift, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not just a passing trend.
And it's not just, a vague interest. We're seeing specific types of AI tools becoming really embedded in how people work. Let's start with AI coding assistants.
Good place to start.
There's a whole bunch of them popping up. We've got tools like Quoto, seems focused on really precise code suggestions, even generating tests automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's GitHub Copilot, probably the best known one, right? Code suggestions, the chat feature.
It's very popular.
Tabnine's another big one. They emphasize refactoring, smarter code completions, and the list goes on. Codium, AI autocomplete, test generation again.
Right. Amazon Code Whisperer 2, suggestions, security scanning built in.
Ask Cody for generating code snippets, answering questions. SourceGraph Cody seems to dig deeper into understanding the whole code base, lets you do custom prompts.
That's interesting.
FigStack helps explain code, automates documentation that's always needed. IntelliCode uses real-world examples. And CodeGX, focusing on generation and even, translation between languages.
It's quite the landscape. What's really striking is just the variety, how each tool tries to solve slightly different problems.
Yeah.
Like Kodo focusing on tests early on, that's about quality from the start. Copilot's success is probably down to how well it fits into the existing workflow.
Makes sense.
And the pricing models are all over the place too. Free tiers, subscriptions, suggest they want everyone using these, from individuals to big teams.
So is it just about being faster, do you think? Or is there pressure to just keep up?
That's a good question. Probably a mix of both, I guess.
Yeah.
Productivity is huge, but yeah, staying current matters too.
Okay, so that's coding. But AI is moving into testing too, right? Making big changes there.
Oh, definitely. These AI testing tools are changing QA. They can automatically generate test cases sometimes, even maintain the test scripts as the code changes.
Right, less manual upkeep.
Exactly. DigitalOcean mentioned a few key ones. Mabel, for example, it's low code, does mobile UI testing, API testing, even accessibility testing, which is super important now.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Test.ai. It uses AI for functional and regression testing on mobile and web. Seems particularly good if your app updates frequently, because the AI can kind of adapt.
This to the changes.
Yeah, and TestCraft was another one, low code again, uses AI to automatically update scripts, saves a lot of tedious work.
Okay, so the benefits seem pretty clear across the board. Coding and testing. Faster development maybe. Better code quality because of the suggestions and explanations.
Yeah, hopefully.
And definitely less that manual grind, especially in testing. It really feels like the day-to-day job of a developer is starting to shift.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And, as these tools become common, the skills engineers need are changing too.
Oh, right.
Which brings us to those generative AI skills that are giving people a real competitive advantage now.
Okay, let's dig into those. DataQuest had an article outlining some key ones. First up, managing conversation states in chatbots. Why is that so important?
Well, think about talking to a chatbot, right? If it forgets what you just said, the whole conversation falls apart. It's
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah, totally.
So managing conversation state is all about making sure the chatbot keeps track of the context. What was said before, who said it, It's critical for making the interaction feel natural and personalized.
Right, like in customer service or education tools.
Exactly. It means thinking about, data structures, memory usage.
Right.
How do you store that history efficiently? It's a technical challenge.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. It's not just one-off answers, it's building a real dialogue. Okay, second skill they highlighted, crafting effective prompts for LLMs, large language models. Sounds simple, but maybe it isn't.
Oh, there's definitely an art and science to it. The quality of your prompt
Yeah.
directly impacts how good the AI's output is.
Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
DataQuest mentioned a few techniques, prompt sandwiches, basically structuring your prompt carefully with context, instructions, maybe even examples.
Okay.
Iterative prompting that's refining the output over several tries, like you guide the AI conversationally.
Retweaking it.
Exactly. And few-shot prompting. That's
Yeah.
where you give the model a couple examples of input and the kind of output you want, like a mini training session in the prompt itself.
Huh. It's fascinating how precise you need to be to talk to these things effectively. Okay, third skill, integrating AI into web apps using Streamlit. What's Streamlit and why is this a big deal?
So Streamlit is a Python library. It makes building interactive web apps much easier, especially apps that involve data science or machine learning models.
Yeah.
And the demand for this skill is shooting up.
Yeah.
Because companies want to take these powerful AI models and actually let people use them through a simple web interface.
Makes sense putting it into practice.
Right. Streamlit lets you do that fast with Python. Easy to plug in AI models, build interactive UIs, and it even handles updates automatically if your data changes. But like DataQuest said, you still need to understand application structure, state management, performance. It's not magic.
Right, still need those core software skills. It's bridging that gap between the AI model and a usable application.
Precisely.
So if someone really wants to dive deep into this, we saw that 120-day study plan for becoming an AI-focused full-stack engineer. That sounds intense.
It does look pretty comprehensive, yeah.
What were the key AI parts of that plan?
Well, days 81 to 100 were specifically called integrating AI into applications. They even recommended the Microsoft Azure AI fundamentals for generative AI. Then later on, days 101 to 115, the focus was advanced web development and full-stack project development. And they specifically suggest building an AI web app using Python and Flask.
Hands-on.
Exactly. The whole plan really stressed problem-solving skills for full-stack work, but crucially, building actual projects, applying the learning. Very practical.
Yeah, that hands-on part seems critical. You can read about it all day, but building something makes it stick. Now, let's circle back to prompts. This whole area seems to have spawned a new job title, prompt engineer.
It really has.
What does a prompt engineer actually do?
Well, Coursera and others define it as basically the craft of designing and refining the inputs, the prompts you give to LLMs.
Okay.
The goal is to get the most accurate, relevant, useful output possible. It's about really understanding how these models think, if you can say that, and communicating effectively with them.
And demand is growing. People are hiring for this.
Definitely. There's talk of certifications even. It's becoming a recognized specialty.
So what skills do you need? It's not just being good with words, is it?
No, not at all. Strong writing is key, obviously, but you also need a really good grasp of what different LLMs can and can't do, their strengths, weaknesses, limitations,
Right.
knowing which model fits which task.
And being familiar with those prompting techniques we mentioned, zero shot, few shot, chain of thought, plus a willingness to experiment and iterate.
Okay, can you just quickly remind us what those techniques are? Zero shot, few shot, chain of thought, maybe with a quick software example.
Sure. So zero shot is asking for something without giving examples, like write a Python function to reverse a string. You assume the model knows Python.
Okay.
Few shot, you give it examples, maybe show it a few unsorted lists and the sorted versions, then ask it to sort a new one. You guide it more.
Makes sense.
And chain of thought is for complex stuff. You break the problem down in the prompt. Like for debugging, you might ask, first, identify potential errors in this code. Second, explain the logic here. Third, suggest a fix. You lead it step by step. Got it. That clarifies it nicely. Now, the context you give these models seems super important too. GitHub Copilot's approach, they actually detailed their prompt engineering pipeline. What was interesting there?
Yeah, that was insightful. They put a lot of effort into feeding relevant context to the LLM. It's not just your current code.
No. What else?
It looks at code above and below your cursor, obviously, but also content from other open files in your project. And they're smart about it. They snippet it, score it for relevance so they don't just dump everything in.
Ah, okay.
Plus metadata, like the programming language, the file path, All this context helps the LLM understand your specific situation much better, leading to hopefully more helpful suggestions.
It sounds incredibly sophisticated, just trying to give the AI the best possible starting point.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. How is AI actually fitting into the day-to-day workflow of software development? Databricks had this iterative workflow for building Gen AI apps. What were the stages? Right, they really emphasized iteration, which totally makes sense for AI. They broke it down into 4 main stages: define, build, evaluate, and iterate, and production.
Okay, define first. Groundwork.
Exactly. That's figuring out, what does this AI app need to do? What are the requirements? What data do we need? Is the data any good? And what about performance constraints, like latency? How fast does it need to be?
Setting the stage. Then the build stage. Getting a first version out. They mentioned starting minimal.
Yeah. The idea is get something basic working fast. Prepare your data, your tools, build the initial AI agent logic, maybe starting with simple prompts. Do some basic quality checks. Deploy it somewhere safe, like pre-production.
Okay.
And then, crucially, start collecting feedback immediately. They also stressed using tools like MLflow for tracing and logging right from the start.
Yeah.
Basically, keeping really good track of what the AI is doing and how it's performing.
Right, tracking everything. Then, based on that initial feedback, you move to evaluate and iterate.
Correct. This is the refinement loop. You look at the real queries people made, how the AI responded. You might add expert labels like, this is the kind of answer we expect, or specific guidelines.
Ah, okay. Improving the quality.
Yeah. And you use evaluation tools, maybe built-in LLM judges, maybe custom metrics to measure how well the AI is doing.
Right.
Based on that, you tweak the agent's logic, the data, the prompts. Then you test again. Keep iterating.
Makes sense. And finally, production. Putting it out there.
Right. Deploying it for real users. But it doesn't stop there. You have to keep monitoring it continuously. Is the quality drifting? Is it doing weird things?
Ah, so it circles back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Monitoring might uncover new problems or requirements, sending you back to the earlier stages to refine things again. It's an ongoing cycle, especially with AI changing so fast.
Seems like a very practical, iterative way to handle building these things. Now, it's not just about code generation, is it? We're seeing AI influence software architecture, too.
That's a really interesting development, yeah. Noeda pointed this out, using Gen AI for tasks beyond just writing code lines, specifically for architecture decisions.
Like what?
Well, they gave an example. Using a prompt to generate an Arch unit test in Java. You'd give it some pseudocode describing an architectural rule you want to enforce, and it could generate the test code and check if the actual code base follows that rule.
Wow, that could actually help enforce architectural standards.
Potentially, yeah. They also noted that as we embed more AI behaviors into systems, architects need to think about the guardrails and evaluation for those AI components themselves. It becomes part of the architecture design.
So the architect's role expands again. Interesting. Okay, looking ahead, what are the big trends? TechTarget had some predictions for 2025. What stood out?
A few things. One was the pressure for ROI, return on investment. Executives poured money into Gen AI. Now they want to see real measurable value. So expect a focus on practical applications.
Makes sense. What else?
Wider use of multimodal models. AI that understands and creates more than just text, images, audio, video. That could unlock new software possibilities. And AI safety and security becoming even more critical. Things like protecting against data poisoning attacks, ensuring the AI behaves reliably. That's going to be huge.
And what about jobs? How is this changing the landscape for engineers?
Well, TrueLogic Software mentioned new roles emerging. AML engineers, data scientists, AI integration specialists. Roles focus specifically on building and deploying AI.
Right.
And the fact that you can find actual job postings for prompt engineer on Indeed now, that tells you something.
It really does.
Intellius also suggested that NLP, natural language processing, might make programming itself more accessible over time.
Interesting thought. And one last thing. How developers get help seems to be changing too. There was that study comparing AI tools to forums like Stack Overflow.
Yeah, and the TEM Journal. It found that while developers still use forums, many are turning to Gen AI tools more often. They find them faster, often more accurate for getting solutions, which leads to higher satisfaction.
Faster and more accurate. That's a pretty big deal for problem solving.
It is. Speed matters a lot in development.
Well, this has been quite the deep dive, really insightful. Just to quickly recap, AI is clearly profoundly changing software development. New tools, new skills needed.
Absolutely. And for you listening, we hope this gave you a clear, solid overview of where things stand and where they might be heading with AI and software, without getting totally overwhelmed.
Right. So here's maybe a final thought to chew on. As AI keeps advancing this quickly, how does the fundamental role of the software engineer actually change? What new creative doors might open up when humans and AI really start collaborating more deeply?
Yeah, it's that balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Leveraging